All right, welcome to everyone to this week's bi-weekly webinar. Today is 6/22/22, which is the only time in your life that you'll experience 6/22/22. So make it a great one. It's also everybody's just a little bit ticked off today. And reason being is the days are getting shorter now for us here in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the longest day of the year yesterday. I'm sure everybody celebrated by staying outside if you're in Mech 1 and the beautiful lightning and thunderstorms that occurred, and saw that it was stayed light until like right around 9:20 or so. But at any rate, it was a beautiful evening, wonderful warm day. We felt like summer finally, and that's nice. So maybe the market will eventually also be egregious and help us with some of that feeling of wonderful summer warmth. Or not. Remember, the market is cold. It doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about our feelings. It just is what it is. It basically reflects our sentiment. So if we're excited and happy and things look up and they're prosperous, it will reflect that. Also, the same side, it will reflect any fear downside. So I had somebody who's been a client for a very, very long time, and I guess we've oversimplified this, but they basically have said this, Chris. There's two things I've learned over time in my many years investing. There's greed and there's fear. And that's it. So the market's in fear, waiting for the next time when greed starts to take over. I thought it was a pretty interesting statement. I don't necessarily agree with the same statement, but it's very close. I think when we simplify it, it's a barometer of how we feel. And I think that's really important to know. Well, going big for me, I'd like to start. So I have had two weddings, one in Atlanta about a week and a half ago, and then one this last weekend in Fort Atkinson with my nephew, who's kind of like my little brother. So we had a great time there, seeing the family. What we do know, and this is kind of funny, but if you have open bar in Fort Atkinson, it goes very, very quickly. I'm not sure but we noticed that I think the bar bill for like 300 people in Temecula, California for the whole night was less than the first hour or two in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, and there was only 80 people there. So just as an FYI, we understand that Wisconsin is listed that way, but that was one gratitude. The second is seeing family, and also people having COVID and actually recovering. We had 7 family members who received it somehow on the trip in some form, and all are doing very well and recovering from it as well. So I just want to say gratitude to them and going big, that they are recovering quite well, and that my daughter Isabel and is playing in her first Wisconsin Junior PGA golf tournament today. So she should enjoy that. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good things going on, a lot of things to focus on, plenty to focus on the other side. But I tell you what, I would rather focus on the gratitude than the other side. So how about Ken? How about yourself?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. My go big was last night was Little League night at the Brewers game. And to see these thousands and thousands of kids there that act like professional athletes, and the hope is so high for these young kids because they think they're going to make it to the majors and they love baseball, and just to see that excitement, just to see that hope that they have in their eyes and what they talk about and how excited they are to be at the game, it kind of makes you feel like a little kid again, and it kind of takes you back to some of those early memories of Little League if you played it, and some of the early things that you've done in your life. So my gratitude was it was a fun environment. It was a very warm environment, as a lot of you know, last night. But it was good to see Julie there at the game, and some other clients were there as well. But just to see the hope and the cheerfulness on these little kids' faces, it was so great. It was so great.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. How about yourself, Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. A lot like you. Really, my gratitude today is family. My family by life, through my parents. They've always been amazing and there for me, with Father's Day last weekend. My family here at Gentian through our team, and through you as clients, and most recently my fitness family downtown Milwaukee. I've never realized the power of a fist bump in the morning, and working together, and compassion. We looked up the word of what it means, and it means to suffer together. So you wonder how quickly you can get close with different people if you're suffering together or working out together. It's really amazing how quickly and how close you can get in a short amount of time.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. How about Michael?
Thanks, Chris. I'm really grateful that Zach has met this gym family, because now I don't have to run with him while he's training for his ultra marathons. But seriously, I got to give a shout out actually to Julie on our team. She just recently introduced me to a great mechanic. I had a leaky sunroof and my car flooded in that downpour that we recently had, and he is saving me a bunch of money, and we're getting that thing fixed. So shout out to you, Julie. I appreciate you.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, what I'd like to do today is to begin with something that I think everybody's probably feeling, and I think everybody's been talking about inflation. Quite honestly, we see at the pumps prices. We see the president wants to give a gas moratorium, and of course that's very minimal. I don't think that's going to be the demand decider. But a lot of our roads and things are funded by that. There's a lot of things people are talking about right now with also the Russian conflict, with potential recession. I think now Fidelity says there's a 30% chance of recession. And it's interesting, if you look at it perspective wise and history wise, once they announce recession, often the market has already begun to recover and go the opposite direction. So it's very interesting to look at. People are really concerned about recession, and they're doing probably exactly what they shouldn't do at the very wrong time. Market's always looking ahead about 6 to 12 months. That's just what it does. And it typically says, if there's a perceived fear coming, I'm going to price that in now because we know what's going to happen, even if it doesn't. That's what emotions do to the market. And that's what this perspective is about. It's about, but looking out and seeing maybe what isn't there. And that's what happens with fear. But I got to tell you, when you see the market as volatile as it's been, you're seeing an awful lot of that fear kind of realized by people selling, or more importantly, even not buying. So that's been happening. You've seen, I think, reductions in mortgage originations by 52%. You've seen a lot of things slowing down. This is one thing we've taught. I'm not sure if many of you remember Economics 101. It could have been back in high school, could have been in college, could have been never. But Economics 101 is if prices go up quite a bit, people will stop demanding as much of that. So if it's gas prices, they'll stop driving. If it's home prices, they'll stop buying. If it's interest rates, they'll stop mortgaging or slow down mortgaging. So a lot of that is beginning to come to fruition. You're starting to see some of the components come back for vehicles. You're starting to see some of the oversupply. I just recently read this as well. If you're looking for bargains in furniture and outdoor furniture, apparently all the furniture that was delayed last year is all coming to stores right about now or in the next 5 to 6 weeks. They say there will be sales like you've never seen before. Now, this was something I read, and everything you read on the internet is true. So, of course, make sure that you pile in and don't buy any furniture until late summer when you can't use it. Anyway, but I saw that was an interesting article, and you see that in some perspective that goes with it. But one thing I wanted to just touch base with as well, I had a really good friend who I work with, and we have these stream team calls where advisors from around the nation, a couple of top advisors, excuse me. And what we do is we get together and just have conversations about life or things that are going on. But this is a good friend of mine, Avi, has says this. His mom taught him this his whole life, and he's just beginning to realize it's true now, and it rings true. Life is hard, and the sooner you accept this, the easier it will become. So if you kind of take that as a motto for today, life is hard, and the sooner you recognize this, the easier it'll be. I think a lot of times we get stuck in this, oh my gosh, it should be easy, it should be easy, it should be easy. Well, life's really probably never been easy, but it's a mindset and how you approach it that it can make it easy as well. So when we run into conflict, that's a very important part today. I'd like to use that as our real thought as far as today and kind of resonance as well. A couple of things we've looked at too. Are you transactional or transformational? So we look at this too. Transactional means you're out there just doing things to get what you need and you move on. I think as you look at transformation, you ask questions, you hang out, you become part of community. So it's like, look at this today. I look to be transformational, not so much transactional. Transactional is kind of a negative connotation because it means you're just doing something to get something, and there's really nothing else invested. I think we have to be careful of becoming transactional in our relationships, in our businesses, in our communities, because you just get out of it what you want and you don't put anything back into it. Where if you look at this, as we look at true transformational, or if you're looking at like a longer term view, you're going to start to invest in it. You're going to actually add to it, not just take from it, that relationship. So I know in being a good friend, that's often the equation that I look for. And I'll say sometimes I get so busy, I think I don't intend to be transactional, but I end up being transactional. So to be transformational, to be a really good friend, to be a really good community member, to be a really good spouse, to be a really good father, mother, son, brother, those are things that actually take time and investment. Remember, love has two, it's a word I feel, but it's also action. So with me today, I just want to say, when you're doing something, try to avoid the transactional basis of it as well. Look at it longer term if you really can, because what you'll find is true happiness and joy comes from, ebullient joy often comes from the fact that you have been not transactional, but transformational, transforming the relationship into a friend and a deeper relationship. So I wanted to share that. I've been reading about it. It resonated with me. But I really enjoyed that, the comment as well from my friend Avi. There's several more things. Again, I always have 30, 40, 50 things I want to share with you, but those are 2 or 3 that I want to resonate instead of sharing just a ton of things that don't. With that right now, what I'll probably do is maybe I'll head over to Mike's minute real quick. Michael.
Thanks, Chris. You're always a tough act to follow, but I appreciate the opportunity. So something that we're kind of looking at, and what Chris kind of alluded to, is that the market likes to price things in. It's a leading indicator. And something that the market's expecting right now is for earnings with the companies within the S&P 500 to do poorly coming up because of high inflation. But something that was recently brought to our attention in some of the conversations that we've had with our partners is the idea that the composition within the S&P 500 has changed in comparison to how it's performed in times of high inflation. Now, what I mean by that is, in comparison to 1969, there are less than half the amount of industrial companies in the S&P 500, and that weighted percentage has gone from 33% to about 8%, I apologize. And the idea that technology companies has tripled since 1969. It has gone from around 20 to significantly more, in the 60s. And because of that, technology has the ability to withstand inflation because it doesn't need as much of that raw material. It doesn't need those things to produce the products. And so there's an idea that they could potentially have a surprise with earnings coming up. There's no guarantee, but the potential could exist. And the idea of looking at some of these compositions and some of these different things is very interesting. Back to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Thanks for offering some of that perspective as well. I know we see a lot of our representatives in the funds that we have, and it's always great to see them. They give us some great insight, but we're always looking for the timeless and things that, instead of just knowledge of what may be just today and not important long-term. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate that as well. So one thing I want to say, I haven't really talked about many dad jokes for the past 2 sessions. I think we're telling some dad jokes. I think it was Ken was telling some dad jokes to his son, and he really didn't appreciate it. So we call it a sunburn. That's what dad jokes lead to, sunburn. Anyway, I thought it was funny when your kids come back to you. Actually, one of the ones I thought was good is that when you vacation in the mountains, why do I enjoy so much vacationing in the mountains? Because they are hilarious. I get it. That's why I love telling bad dad jokes even better. I've got some good ones and I'll save those for later, but the bad ones are even better. Anyway, as we go through, what I want to do is bring you over to maybe, in this case, let's head to Zach's facts. Zach, why don't you give us some important information that we need to know about the markets today?
Sounds great, Chris. Thank you. We'll go through the average returns like we normally do for the year. Then we'll also try to provide a little perspective with S&P 500 price to earnings ratio, and then kind of go through a few things that we're working on behind the scenes as well during these times. But going through the year-to-date returns, the S&P 500 temporarily down 21%. So that number to be officially a bear market from peak down 20% is when the bear market clock starts, technically. If you remember from 2 weeks ago, all the indexes had sharp upturns, and lately over the last 2 weeks, we've kind of had the opposite direction, about a 9% correction in the S&P. The Dow Jones right around 16% temporarily down in the year, about 7 in the last 2 weeks. The NASDAQ, which again, as kind of Mike alluded to too, just in the heavier weighting towards technology, on about 30% or 7 in the last 2 weeks. In the smaller size companies where we've seen a little more, even more dramatic, temporarily down in the last 2, the Russell 2000, about 24%, about 10% change in the last 2 weeks. The growth portion over the last year and a half, we've really talked about the separation between growth and value. That is still there. Growth is right around 31.5% temporarily down on the year. Value 17.5. On the international side, right around 20. And emerging markets right around 20 as well, 19.38. And kind of going into really the PE ratio, the price to earnings ratio, we just wanted to see, according to historical measures, are we overvalued? Are we way undervalued? It's kind of a measure to do so. When we look back to a chart going before 1880, the mean price to earnings ratio is 15.97, or about 16. Right now we're at about 19.03. But as we all know, things were very different, or as we've read, things were very different, 1880 or 1900s, especially as far as reporting. So we really wanted to look over the last 30 years. And really, there's only been 3 other times since 1995 that the price to earnings ratio has been less than it is now. 1995, 2008, 2009, and 2012 again. And coming out of COVID, it was actually 35. So maybe potentially temporarily we were overvalued, now undervalued to get to those long-term averages. So we just wanted to see kind of historically where things were at. As we've talked about many times, we don't like watching account balances temporarily go down, but that's also why we have the structure that we have, because we feel these corrections with you and know that they're necessary and normal. And during these, we're really looking for all these different opportunities behind the scenes. Mike, Ryan, myself, our entire team are going through different scenarios, going through our timeless principles, making sure that those still make sense, looking at the different asset classes with growth and value that we mentioned. Is now a time to rebalance out of schedule? Do we stay in schedule? Some of the asset classes have performed extremely well, even with a 20% correction. Some alternative space actually up 40% on the year. So is it time to take some of those? So really going behind the scenes and seeing if there's anything we can take advantage of now. And some of the things that Ken mentions through the tax planning, through the rebalancing, and really why we diversify and continue to do so. But most importantly, really looking through of just maintaining the faith, patience, and discipline that we always look at, and really keeping the long-term plan in focus. That'll hand it back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. I appreciate when you bring up some of the fundamentals like faith, patience, and discipline. You may hear them 1,000 times from us, but you'll find that it may strike you differently as we bring it now. If you look at the summer, it's a wonderful time to go out for family vacations. It's a wonderful time to do some travel or sit outside, enjoy the pool, enjoy your flowers, watch your plants and gardens grow. There's a bunch of wonderful things. What it is it's a time, I think, for the growth side of the equation. So I appreciate that, Zach. Thank you for bringing that up as well. And I think for bringing us all the different perspectives on the markets. I read something too, that the forward PE which is a different ratio, it came from JP Morgan's facts. Essentially, JP Morgan has said that the PE ratio on a forward basis is now below the 10-year average. So it's interesting to watch some of these different perspectives on it as well. Why do we look at that? Like Zach said, it's just some sort of valuation, looking towards a forward progress and maybe looking towards some potential growth in the future. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Why don't we, if we get a chance here, Ken, how about we have Ken's Corner? What do you have to enlighten us today for some of the planning ideas we can take advantage of?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thank you very much. And I looked at the list of who was on the Zoom today. And so this point I'm about to make is really for your kids and grandkids. You can be the hero to them, because when we talk to our clients that are in the saving mode, a lot of you are on the call that are in the distribution mode, using your money, so that's a different conversation we have with all of you. But be the hero to your family members and friends that are in the saving mode right now, because one of the things we hear from investors, and it's a very common thing, is that when the markets are going down like this and we're in a temporary correction, every dollar that they put into their 401k, they feel like they're losing. And that's not actually the case, because what happens is, let's say our dollars that we were investing before, it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $10,000, doesn't matter on a monthly basis. Say we're buying 20 shares of something. Now we're buying 25 shares of something. Now we're buying 30 shares of something. We're buying more and more shares. So when that price actually gets to where it should be, then that's how investors make their money on the way up. So don't stop the contributions. It sounds so simple right now, but sometimes, I put $1 in, I feel like I'm losing $2. That's something we hear. Don't stop the contributions. Now is the time to even ramp them up if you can. And that's going to pay, history says that's going to pay off in the future to us, right? That's what history says to us. So we have to guide that one. The other one I want to share with you is something we received from Social Security. I'm just going to share my screen very briefly. This comes directly from Social Security. It's really the update that we got recently directly from the board. And really, I just want to highlight a few things. And when you take a look at this, is that the trust fund, the Social Security Trust Fund, is projected to become depleted in 2034. That's 1 year later than last year. So when you take a look at that, why do I bring this stuff up? It's not doom and gloom. It's to say, okay, look, we have great tools that we can go over with you to show what happens if we only received, like they say down here, only 80% of the scheduled benefits. What would happen if we only received 80% of those benefits? what does our plan look like at that point in time? To Zach's point, to Chris's point, long-term planning, right? What do we need to do today if that may be the reality tomorrow? And that's something we can help quantify with you and say, okay, are we on track? And if we only receive that, how can we use this information to our benefit and to make sure that your plan is really on track? If you take a look at this, total expenditures, that's interesting there. You take a look at $6.5 billion to administer the program last year. Some of these numbers kind of get big here. But when you look at this, I just want to bring that piece up to you. I don't want to belabor the point here, but just wanted to show you that as far as Social Security goes. And we have a keen eye on that, and we'll help you through all that. Some say, how does Social Security get remedied? Well, one of the ways through a stealth tax, and it's all about the taxability of your wage base that you're making. In 2017, that number was $127,000 approximately. I'm rounding right now, but $127,000 of your hard-earned earnings that you made from your working job, a W-2 or a 1099, up until that amount was fully taxed on Social Security. Anything above and beyond that, not taxed at Social Security. That was 2017. Today, in 2022, the number is 147,000. So, as the numbers, as people make more money, we're being taxed a little more on the Social Security aspect. So, probably look for that to rise in the future at some point in time as well. That's one way to collect more revenue for Social Security. That's a tax that goes on behind the scenes that not everyone sees and has a keen eye on. The other point before I pass it back to Chris is about taxes. You mentioned something about life being hard, and when we accept that, it gets easier. Same way with taxes. Taxes is the hardest thing to pay. And then also the easiest thing not to pay is taxes, right? And so, that's a fine line that we balance out with all of you to say, okay, do we want to pay some taxes today so we don't pay tomorrow? It's a fine line. Some of it comes down to a thought process on your end to say, okay, why would I want to pay taxes today? Why wouldn't I want to pay taxes? These are the conversations we're having. So what happens in that conversation? Roth 401ks come into play. All the rules behind that. There's ordering rules that we have to pay attention to. And also, Roth conversions, Roth contributions. Two key words there, contribution versus conversion. We got an eye on that one too. And also backdoor Roth conversion. So again, some terminology there. Some of you probably know what that is. But again, these are the conversations we're having in our meetings recently, and I also want to bring it to everyone's attention. So back to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that as well. I think a couple of things that I'd like to share too as we go through and just even conclusion here is taking a look at one statement. There's an always getting better statement that I've said. Maybe you can see the video on that as well. Also, there's things you can control and things you can't control. And if you look at the two, things you can control, you can do something about. Things you can't control, you can't do anything about. And let me ask you a question. Has there ever been something out of your control that has really made you angry? I like to ask that question. If it's out of your control and you couldn't do anything about it, why let it bother you? It's a practice I want to encourage you to do. Now, let me share something with you. And whether you believe that Jordan Peterson has a book, and it's a great book. I think it's called The 12 Rules of Living Life. And whether you agree with his stance on things or not, it's very interesting, but I want to read a couple of those to you just quickly in the ending. So there's 12 rules. Maybe I'll read them all. Maybe I won't. I think, but the first three are very interesting. Let me show you something here. Rule number one, fix your posture. Others will treat you with more respect. Look at my posture right now. Look at my posture right now. Strangely enough, one good rule for you, others will treat you with more respect when you have good posture. Number two, take care of yourself the way you would take care of someone else. This is good. Many people are better at filling prescriptions for their dogs than themselves. Treat yourself well. Surround yourself with people who want you to succeed. That can be difficult, but make sure you're always striving toward that. And that may be leaving some close friends behind. It stinks, or maybe spending less time with them. Anyway, it's an important part. Judge yourself by your own goals, not by others. This is good parenting. And as a parent, train your children to follow the rules of society. That's an interesting one. Oftentimes, speeding, stop sign, all those little things. Maybe people just fudge, do a rolling stop, do things. Teaching your children those kind of signs and societal signs are important. Before blaming anything else, think: have I done everything within my ability to solve the problem? That's a big thing with our society today. First thing we do is look at maybe who to blame, how to blame, it's their fault, rather than looking at, is there anything that I could have done to change that? That's a big one. It's a good reflection for me all the time as well. That's 6. Maybe I'll just complete 12 because we've got 4 minutes left. Do what is meaningful to you and you'll feel better about existing. That's called purpose. Number 8, act only in ways in line with your personal truth. Stop lying. A lot of people tell little white lies. 9, listen to other people thoughtfully. You'll learn something and they'll trust you. 10, define your problem specifically. It becomes easier to deal with. 11, accept that inequality exists. And 12, life is tough. Take time to indulge in the little bits of happiness. I would say life is tough, and the sooner you learn that, the easier it gets. So at any rate, some great rules. I actually read those, and a good friend of ours mentioned a book, and I actually, instead of reading the book, just looked up the 12 rules. And I thought those are quite apropos, things we talk about often. As well. One of the rules of the bi-weekly webinars too is to have the happenings at Gentian. So what I'd like to do is to bring Peter Nordenberg. I'm not sure if you know him. He's a newer member of the team, just around 16, 17 years. He's been with us. I'm just kidding, Peter. But I wanted to bring you on, Peter. Congratulations on moving into your new home, getting everything moved out of the other home. I know that's been a big thing for you. But why don't you let us know the happenings at Gentians we should know about?
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Yeah, my wife and I, our lives have been a little busy the last month or so. But happenings. Today is Kristen's work anniversary. So she's actually been at Gentian for 6 years now. So if you have a chance to wish her a happy work anniversary, she would very much appreciate that. Our happenings email did mention that today we were going to have limited office availability for our professional development day. We've actually moved that to Wednesday, July 6th. So we will have normal availability today if there's anything that you need. And then, as you may have hopefully seen, for Gathering on the Green, save the dates for Thursday, July 7th, Friday, July 8th, Saturday, July 9th, and Sunday, July 10th. We have some space available for those concert series. There's a different music type each night. Saturday night, the rock night is sold out. We do have availability the other 3 days. So if you are thinking about coming, please make sure you click the link in the email and RSVP. And that's all that's in the happenings, Chris. So back to you to close it out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So what I'd like to do here is I've got a good friend, Blake Eastman. He actually used to be a professional poker player, but he's actually a person I've met through my Thrivers network, which is with Lee Brower. And what I wanted to do in this, he's giving us an assignment every day for the next 8 days because of the book Trust and Inspire. He's giving us a question. I'd like, for those who'd like to participate, as I get these questions, I want to bring one up to you. This is a very good one. You can write it down, you can see it in the transcript as well. But basically, as we start this, the question is, what is your pattern of control and manipulation? And your answer is, I don't control or manipulate people. It's an interesting one, but whether we realize it or not, we often take control by being super agreeable, super disagreeable, telling people what we think versus what they should think. But this is interesting. Here's the first question. The following question is, what are the ways that I control and manipulate my friends, team, or family? So it's not an easy question to answer. If you have trouble seeing this, you may need to ask them, ask your friends, ask your family, ask your loved ones, ask your team, and ask them people who will really tell you the answer, because it's very helpful for you to know in the bigger picture. So anybody who wants to on this assignment, go along with me. I have to complete these. But the first one is, what are the ways I control and manipulate my friends, team, and family? It's a good one, because if you look at your strong opinions, and a lot of you are very, very smart, you might just find maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but it's a great question. So what I'd like to do though is leave you with that. If you want to share it, you can email us, you can put that together, or more importantly, the exercise is probably best done, just with yourself. But if you'd like to share that, we'd love to see that as well. And I'll share as I get these across the way. If anybody'd like to, you can email us and I'll share the question each day, and we can work through those together. Anyway, with that, I'd love to thank you all for this beautiful, shorter day of summer, second day of summer, if you will. And the beautiful thing about the 21st is that, and my wife says it too, is, man, it seems like we are just getting going. Now it seems like we're halfway through summer. So at any rate, we've had 3 or 4 summer days at least recently. I want to make sure that you guys are enjoying them, having fun, but more importantly, we're here for any questions about the market, your financial scenario that support the things that are important to you, your time, your retirement, your vacation. Remember, this isn't the first time we've been through bear markets in retirement. We've been through them consistently. They're a natural part of what it is we do, and they're a natural part of your future experience. We're here to alleviate or to reduce some of the pain and how you may be feeling those. So any questions you have for us, let us know. We're here to offer that perspective and be timeless and true, not to be jumping around making horrible mistakes that will not allow you to retire for the long term. So our intention is to be here in any conditions, especially in bear markets. So we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you to the team. Also, I want to say with that, Gentian retirement is a very important part of what we do to plan it, live it, and give it. Any questions you have for us, anything you need from us, please feel free to reach out. From the entire team here, we appreciate it. Have a great rest of the 2 weeks, and we will see you in 2 weeks from today. Thank you.